Hi there. Thanks so much for joining me today for the latest episode of Impact Real Estate Investing. Today marks the first anniversary of this podcast, something I am immensely proud of. A year ago, I didn't know that our audience would grow as it has. In fact, a year ago, I wasn't sure we would have an audience at all. And I certainly never imagined that I would have the opportunity to talk with so many extraordinary individuals, leaders, and movers in their respective fields, all doing remarkable things. When we started the podcast, I thought we would focus on real estate and the impact it makes, but I've discovered that real estate is a very broad term. I found a horde of people working in fascinating niches around this one big central theme, the built environment we all occupy. These people work in city planning, on affordable housing, in impact investing, on mobility issues, in fintech, as architects, on sustainable development, on community development, on equity in communities, and in many other niches pushing the boundaries of the built environment to be better for everyone. The range of work that is being accomplished is, quite frankly, astounding. I learned how big visionary thinkers make cities better, like Josh McManus in How to Leave Places Better Than You Find Them. He spent quite a lot of time rebuilding downtown Detroit. Or Tom Murphy, past mayor of Pittsburgh, who showed incredible fortitude in shepherding Pittsburgh from abandoned to reinvented in how to transform a city. And most recently, Avra Jain, who tells us all to look past the working girl on the corner in Beyond the Vagabond. When she looked, she saw the future of Biscayne Boulevard. Other guests have reminded me of the power of zoning, architecture, and design, starting with Liz Faletta in By Right by Design. Her in-depth research on the impact of zoning on housing in Los Angeles provides unexpected insight. In Atlanta, Emerick Kronberg convinced me yet again of the importance of salvaging architecture in The Zoning Whisperer. Christine Mondor reinforces the idea that architects can influence the future of cities in The Power of Design. And Lorenzo Perez's creativity as a real estate developer in Phoenix caught me off guard in Real Estate Artist. His approach to transforming ugly desert architecture into beautiful community spaces is wildly creative. Let's not forget the housing crisis. Lots of my guests are all in looking for big solutions. John Perfitt and Jason Neville are tackling homeless housing in Los Angeles by reintroducing iconic architecture in Hungry for Disruption. Molly McCabe describes the unusual approach of the Lotus campaign in Capital is Just a Tool. Jonathan Tate takes an architect's approach by focusing on the value of odd lots and the houses you can build on them in Lead by Example. Scott Choppin is tackling multi-generational workforce housing in The Contrarian Developer, an important niche that has gone unnoticed by other housing developers. Matt Hoffman is focusing instead on how technology might solve the crisis in 7.4 million short. Rebecca Foster in San Francisco is busy saving existing affordable housing through financial tools on accelerating affordable housing. Brian Gaudio has a modular housing solution in Scaling Up. And Thibault of Seawall Development is focusing on specific communities, affordability, and astounding preservation efforts in Choose Your Own Rent. Across the Pacific Ocean, Australian architect Jeremy McLeod has figured out how to deliver sustainable, affordable, and beautiful housing in a market that most people can't afford. Fellow Australian Kris Daff is tackling the same problem in a different way. He's assembling communities and offering them a path to home ownership. And across the Atlantic Ocean, Marc Koehler is turning the architectural design process upside down by first curating communities and then designing a building around them in his Superlofts project. It's super fantastic. Community development and social equity have moved into the foreground this year, and I expect will even more so next. Brian Murray is embedded in community in Philadelphia, working on projects that provide equitable opportunities for everyone. Josh Lavrinc has spent his career squarely focused on advancing community development through capital raising and real estate development projects. Emerick Paul Patterson is busy experimenting with inclusionary community tactics in New York. Listen to his love of diversity in delicious urban soup. In West Virginia, Brandon Dennison is experimenting as only an entrepreneur can on how to end generational poverty in a bold experiment in coal country. John Folan, who heads the Department of Architecture, wants to make sure that the next generation of architects understands the meaning of equity. For John, equity is the thread. Majora Carter has gone from revitalization strategist to barista in her efforts to bring equity to the South Bronx, one of the poorest zip codes in the country, and where she lives. Nobody should have to move out of their neighborhood to live in a better one, says Majora. Sadie McKeown in Political Will and Community has seen firsthand the influence of good and steady political leadership in building better communities. Justin Garrett Moore has a day job ensuring the quality of public space in New York City, but on the weekends he's knee-deep in redeveloping the community he grew up in. Hear what he's up against as a black man in black, white, and redlining. Adam Sgrenci is showing communities how they can control their own destinies and educating developers on how to co-create. Adrian Washington has been developing in opportunity zones before they were a thing. He decided a long time ago that greenfields are boring. And Katie Swenson is the quintessential community architect. Home is the most important community development concept for her. For insights into economic development and financial inclusion, hear Kimber Lanning, who is striving for justice in Arizona, or Brian Becken explain how to raise community capital in Share the Wealth. George Newberry is using fintech to help people keep their homes. He's saved $10,000 and counting. While Omid Sateh sees big change in his role at Prudential, helping them to build a $1 billion impact fund. Lance Chimka, who leads an economic development department, believes their role should always be first in towards growth. Christina Marsh has given herself over to the remaking of Erie in Of Service in Erie. Melissa Coyd is researching and advancing ideas on financial inclusion with fintech. And Lanier Richardson wants to help 1,000 urban entrepreneurs grow their business. I've learned about mobility in cities and how it touches real estate and equity from Karina Ricks, who heads a newly energized Department of Mobility, and from Gabe Klein, a mobility rock star who convinced me that the future of mobility will be enhanced by data in Mobility is Pretty Pedestrian. Harriet Tregoning is taking on a leadership role with NUMO, the New Urban Mobility Alliance, and explains why in The Reluctant Planner. And let's not forget Donald Shoup, parking czar, who believes that parking is overrated and undercompensated in parking not required. Others think about investment in ways I never imagined. Janine Furpo is on a personal journey to ensure that every dollar she invests does good. Listen to her explain why in She's All In. Laura Callanan is squarely focused on connecting impact and creativity. And Marc Roderick, a crowdfunding attorney, explains how the Securities and Exchange Commission is opening the doors for democratizing investment and why it's a huge step forward. For innovation in the building industry, listen to Jennifer Castenson, who surely has a finger on the pulse of new trends in living the Jetson life. Or maybe you want to learn about blockchain. Listen to Sandy Selman explain how it might be applied to real estate in digital twins. Or if you are ready to embrace sustainability and saving our planet in the most holistic way, Sandy Wiggins may be just the one to listen to in Let's Change Our Mindset. And if you think we need to get back to a former time, listen to Jim Kuhlman of the Incremental Development Alliance talk about the lost art of small-scale development. He's teaching small-scale developers how to get back there all over the country. Phew, that's a lot of podcasts. I've enjoyed every interview with every person. I'm in awe of them all. But it's time to take some time off to rest, enjoy the weather, and just step back from the extraordinary last few months that has rearranged all of our lives. We'll be back refreshed in September with many more amazing people for you to listen to and me to learn from. Thank you so much for joining me. Now go forth, invest a little in your community, and make some change.